Hello, and welcome to the YouTube channel Bean Steamers, things that really steam your bean. Well, I'm here today with a new installment, and this has to do with false advertising. So, to get things going, I'm here with my beat up Lake Tahoe hat, my Gruen Guitars t-shirt. I bought a guitar there once and they sent me this shirt for free. And of course, I'm here with Harold the baby Bigfoot. Say hello to him. Well, as mentioned, we're going to start with false advertising. Now, this is a true story. Many years ago, it was decades in fact, there was a radio talk show host in my home city that had a nationally syndicated program on an AM radio station every afternoon. Now, I know what you're saying. AM? Who listens to AM? Well, if you'd had this guy to listen to in the afternoon, you would have listened to AM as well. He was absolutely hilarious. He had all kinds of characters that would call in to have conversations with him, but he was doing all the voices himself. Everyone wishes he were still on. He retired to Florida some years ago. In fact, I even heard that he had passed away. At any rate, if you didn't know this already, you'll know this simple fact now. Radio is driven by ads. If salespeople can't sell ads on the shows will cease to exist. Now, I don't know for sure, but I would say that the sales department didn't have any trouble selling spots on this particular afternoon show. They probably turned people away. Now, one of the regular advertisers was a popular local security company that provided, among other things, security systems for the home and office. I would mention them by name, but they're still in business in Southwest Ohio, so they must be doing something right. So one July afternoon, I was listening away, laughing uncontrollably, when a commercial break was taken. After the commercial for some restaurant or sale at some department store, a commercial for the security company came on. The professional announcer's smooth voice was speaking of the advantages of this company's security system for your home when he made the profound statement that caught my ear. He said, "Do you know that 26% of home burglaries occur between Memorial and Labor Day? Install this system now. Call 555-5555 to speak with a sales professional in the next 10 minutes, and you'll receive a 10% discount on the installation." Wow, I thought, maybe this is something I should look into. Of course, my focus of interest changed back to the program in a few minutes, and I forgot all about the security company until I was on my way home from work. Then it hit me like a brick upside the head. Memorial Day is at the end of May. Then there's June, July, August, and Labor Day is the first weekend in September. 3 months plus almost 1 week, about 26% of the year. What that golden voiced announcer was saying was 26% of the home burglaries occur during 26% of the year. I guess that means that the other 74% of burglaries occur during the other 74% of the year. Or maybe you could say that half the burglaries occur during half the year. Well, needless to say, I didn't get the security system. The other thing that really steamed me about this commercial was the fact that if you call in the next 10 minutes, you got 10% off installation. Did the sales professional at the security company know every time the commercial aired and they sent a stopwatch, only giving callers a 10-minute slot after the airing to get the 10% off? What if somebody called 11 minutes after the airing of the commercial? Did they tell them tough darts, you're too late? A more likely scenario is that if anyone called at any time, they got the 10% off deal. They're probably still getting a 10% off and will continue to get 10% off until the Earth is struck by a meteor, causing an extinction level event. I guess that's the way some of these people make money. If you're selling something that comes in at a fair price of $100, charging $120 and giving them $20 off, would that work? It would make them think they're getting a deal. Of course, for the real shysters, they have something that's worth 50 bucks. They advertise it for 200 and they give you 50% off. Someone once told me that no matter how low the price is, they're still making money on the sale. They want you to think that they're taking a loss, but that ain't the case. They're always selling for a profit. It may be small, but it's still a profit. All these modern day reprobates that are around today can be traced back to one salesman who got his start in Southern California right after the close of World War II. Oddly enough, he was a pretty stand-up guy. What the hucksters did was to take his shtick and criminalize it. This unique person, who never graduated from high school, was Earl William Muntz, known to his hordes of faithful customers as Madman Muntz. He got his start in Elgin, Illinois before World War II by opening his first used car lot at the tender age of 16. His mother had to sign all the papers for the sales because he couldn't legally do it. A few years later, when he was in his early 20s, he heard that cars were selling big time in Southern California, so off he went, opening a car lot in Glendale, an area of northeast Los Angeles. He realized early on the power of publicity, or more accurately, absurd publicity. He flooded radio waves and then the television waves with slogans like, "I buy 'em retail and sell 'em wholesale. It's more fun that way." In television commercials, he would dress up like Napoleon and spout witticisms like, "I want to give 'em away, but Mrs. Muntz won't let me. She's crazy." As a side note, there were 7 women who called themselves Mrs. Muntz over Earl's lifetime. Madman Muntz came off like a lunatic, but in reality, he was a shrewd businessman. He managed to sell over $72 million worth of cars in his life. In later years, following a lifelong interest in electronics, he designed a stripped-down television that was easy to repair and was promptly dubbed the Muntz Gutless Wonder. His sets were affordable, and to the working man, many families' first television was a Muntz. And although never substantiated, many credited Earl Muntz with coming up with the phrase TV. On one occasion, he hired a skywriter to spell out Muntz Television over the skies of Los Angeles, and noticed by the time the plane got halfway through the word television, the word Muntz had dissipated. The next time he hired the skywriter, he simply had them spell out Muntz TV. Over the years, he also dabbled in radios, tape machines, and even his own brand of automobiles. Once, in a direct mailing campaign, he sent thousands of television knobs to people in the Los Angeles area with a note that said, "If you want to see the rest of the television set that this knob came from, come over and see us at Muntz TV." He died in 1987 after an extremely successful career, his methods being copied by just about every huckster that came down the line, but used it in a different way. In a way, every timeshare salesman that offers you a wristwatch or a free dinner for sitting through a pitch, every carnival huckster that gets you to play a rigged game, or to a certain extent Bernie Madoff, all owe their pitches and tricks to Earl Madman Muntz, a perfect example of taking something that works and turning it into a scam. Of course, on the other side of the coin is a completely new way of advertising, the all too honest method. This form of copy is usually found in new medications to hit the market. To illustrate, I'm going to make up a name of a new medication. We're going to call it oxytrisilicide. However, that's just the medical name. It will be marketed under the clever name of Harpunium. The commercial on the television would go something like this. At some point in time in our lives, we've all suffered from itchy fingertips, and it seems to break out at the worst time. Cut to a scene of a beautiful woman at a dinner table trying to scratch her fingertips. Her date is mortified. "Oh no, I thought she was perfect and she has IFS, itchy fingertips syndrome. What have I gotten myself into?" he thinks. Yes, Itchy fingertip syndrome is embarrassing, but now you can overcome it by taking a new drug called Harpunium 4 times daily. Ask your doctor if the new Harpunium is right for you. Harpunium is brought to you by the family of Flurgan and Flurgan Pharmaceuticals. Harpunium for a better life without itchy fingertip syndrome. Cut to the background announcer as the young couple stare at each other with goo-goo eyes over a candlelit dinner table. Harpunium can cause, in some people, but not all people most of the time, nausea, running nose, night blindness, total blindness, 6 different types of cancer, falling off of the fingertips, 25-pound weight gain per day, turning skin purple, disappearing intestines, slobbering, and in extreme cases, death. I guess death is still a cure of sorts. If you vapor lock, you won't be suffering from whatever it is that ails you. Disclosing all of this in the all too honest method is still just as bad as outright lying about something. That was what the old time snake oil salesmen would do in the Wild West. They would pull into town touting a new miracle cure in a bottle, selling it for 8 bits. That's $1 to you Easterners, and usually getting run out of town, sometimes being tarred and feathered. Maybe that's what we should do to the new breed of shysters. It might learn them a lesson. Now, the really sad part about all this is if you have a product to sell, you have to resort to one of the 2 methods that we have mentioned. You either have to trick the public with a deceptive ad copy, or you have to take the route of being brutally honest. And I mean honest to the point of scaring people off. If you just hold up your product and say, hey, this stuff is pretty good, why don't you give it a shot? You'll end up in the poorhouse. Deception in advertising is nothing new. Remember the old ads in the 50s for the unnamed brand of chewing gum? One of the big Western stars of the time hawked it with the line, yes, boys and girls, try it. It is good for you. Well, it wasn't. And don't even get me going about the biggest consumer span in recorded history, brought to you by the tobacco companies touting that their product wasn't harmful to you. There's no end to what people will try to pawn off on you, or for that matter, what people will fall for. Case in point, I was recently inundated with multiple ads in between levels of a game that I like to play on one of my mobile devices that was, to me, a surefire con job. However, I'm sure that the legions of people that fell for it, hook, line, and sinker, just should remain unnamed. This company was offering a 16-piece cordless tool set, a major brand name, that included 2 canvas bags with their company's silk logo screened on it for $69.95. I would conservatively estimate the cost of buying these items separately as $1,800. It did say in a very small portion of the page that in addition there would be another $69.95 added for tax to the original price, making the total out of your greedy want something for nothing pocket about $140. I wondered how many suckers sent their hard-earned dough for that one. I've since seen similar ads for other tools following the same format. However, not all instances of false advertising are through ads or commercials. A good example of that is what happened to me a little over 20 years ago at a local home improvement store. They're out of business now, so I can print their name without fear of major reprisal. The store was called HQ. I think that HQ stood for home quarters, and I was buying new roofing shingles for my house, which, by the way, as some of you know, even has its own name, just like the vast estates of Newport, Rhode Island. Remember the nighttime soap opera in the 80s called Dallas? In that show, the Ewing family lived in an impressive house that had a 100-acre front yard called South Fork Ranch. In that spirit, I've always called my house Plastic Fork Ranch. You need to know a few things about this tale of woe and deception advances. I have lived in this house for almost 50 years. I have put a roof on it more than once. It's safe to say that I know how many squares of shingles it takes to do the job. Likewise, I have the fondness for light-colored carpet, so I've had the carpet installed more than a few times over the years as well. I know how many square yards of carpet it takes to redo all the carpeted areas. When they come out to estimate how much I'll need, I know if they're trying to take me to the cleaners by overestimating the amount of carpet. I had one guy tell me that it took 20 square yards more than I know it did. He couldn't understand why I sent him packing. He thought he was giving me a great deal. Anyway, I went to this HQ store and bought the amount of black roofing shingles that I needed, careful to get the same lot number in all the bundles. I have always bought the 15-year shingles. They only last 7 years because the price is so much better. But this time I bought the 25-year shingles. They last 10 years because I figured I'd be dead before I had to do it again. I bought the 15-year shingles again the next time. I lived a lot longer than I thought I would. I got the shingles home and offloaded them into my driveway close to the house and called it a day, thinking I would start the next morning, which I did. I wasn't out to set the world on fire with a roofing record, so I just chipped away at it a little bit every day. As I was closing in on completion, having about 4 bundles of shingles left, I came to the realization that I didn't have enough to finish the job. I was going to be short, maybe 3 bundles. Now, as a side point, if you didn't know, shingles are sold by the bundle, but priced by the square. 3 bundles make up a square, and a square covers 100 square feet. That would mean that each bundle would have to have at least 33 separate shingles in the package, each bundle covering 33 square feet. 33 multiplied by 3 is 99 square feet, close enough. I have on one occasion seen 34 shingles to a bundle. Who cares about a square foot? I opened up the remaining bundles of shingles I had and counted the individual shingles in each bundle. No bundle had more than 25. I was so hot that I almost heat sealed the new shingles standing right there on the roof of my house. I hopped in my faithful truck at the time and blasted off to HQ, armed with the sales receipt for my previous purchase and a basic diagram of my roof. I procured a flatbed cart, went to the roofing department, loaded 3 bundles of shingles on the cart that matched the lot number that I had bought, and went to the front desk. I doth spake. "Hey, Colonel," it helps if you show a little respect. "Do me a favor and take a look at this diagram and tell me how many squares of shingles this roof would take." After about 2 minutes, with the use of a trusty elementary school calculator, he told me it would take the exact number of shingles that I had purchased, after which I showed him the receipt which confirmed that I had indeed bought that amount. "So what's the problem?" he said. "The problem is I'm short. I figure about 3 bundles. Wouldn't you agree that a square of shingles should cover 100 square feet?" "Yeah." "Wouldn't you therefore agree that in order for a square of shingles to cover 100 square feet, that each bundle of shingles should have at least 32 to 34 shingles in it, 33 being the optimal number?" I could tell I was losing him. He just replied, "Huh?" 33 multiplied by 3 is 99. If the bundles had 32 to 34 shingles in each square, that would cover 100 square feet, correct? Yeah," he said. "Where are you headed with this?" "Here's where I'm headed. I'm going to open these 3 bundles of shingles. If they have 30 or more shingles in them, I'll buy them. If they have 29 or less shingles in them, you're giving them to me. Fair enough?" "Okay," he said, but he acted as though maybe he'd just agreed to maybe a sure thing. He didn't know if he was going to walk out with hitting the jackpot or lose the homestead, but one of them was for sure going to happen. I opened the first bundle, 24 shingles. The second and the third each had 25. My point was proven. "See you later, General," I said. He said, "Hey, wait a minute. I have to get the manager to approve this." "Bring him on," I said boastfully, strengthened by the fact that the shingle count in these 3 bundles had been woefully short. The manager came out from his dreadfully small office, and after a brief huddle with the Colonel General, approached me with a look on his face that appeared to be brimming with confidence. "Sir," he said to me, "you just can't walk out of here with 3 bundles of shingles. There's a very good reason that those bundles of shingles have the numbers of shingles in them that they do. Well, I said, I'd love to know the answer to that. This was going to be good. You see, we bundled these shingles by weight, not by count. Those are 25-year shingles. They're thicker than the 15-year shingles. So, since the 15-year shingles and the 25-year shingle packages weigh the same, there's bound to be less of a shingle count in the 25-year shingle than in the 15-year shingle. The look on the manager's face was one of pride. His ultimate wisdom had put me, the ignorant homeowner, in my place. He was sure that the next thing he was going to tell me as I looked at the floor was to pay for these shingles and get out of his home improvement store. So, said I, if you knew that the 25-year shingles had less of a count in them, then you also had to be aware of the fact that you advertised a square of shingles that did not cover 100 square feet. Some would call that false advertising. Some, of which I am one, would call that a deceptive business practice. Most people wouldn't bother to count the shingles. They would just figure that they made a mistake in their estimation and they would run right out and buy more shingles, not wanting to look like a complete idiot who didn't know how to figure a roof. One would think that you're tricking the public into buying more shingles. Now the manager was looking down at the floor. I would suggest that you call your home office and get them to add onto each bundle of 25-year shingles a phrase like, due to the increased weight of these shingles, 3 bundles will only cover 7/8 of a square, or about 90 square feet. The manager nodded his head. I'm leaving now with my free shingles that you owe me due to your false claims, okay? Have a good day, sir, he said, and thank you for shopping at HQ. End of story. Now, I'm not saying that I've never fallen for one of these glossed over scams. I have fallen for one. However, I fell for it twice. Here's my tale of ignorance. When I wrote my first book, or more accurately, series of books, I published it online not really knowing what I was up against. I went to the sales sites of books that appeared to be similar to mine and read the preview of about 100 of them or so. I'm not tooting my own horn here. Well, I guess I am to a certain extent. But viewing it with an unbiased mind as I could, I really believe that my books were better. The writing was better, the storyline developed in a clearer way, and the characters were of a more interesting nature. I believed that at that time, and I still believe it today. I had to find a way to make my books stand out, to stand apart from the rest of the clutter that was on this site. So what did I do? I bought a book online instructing me how to market and sell books by the ocean liner full. I remember it costing $11.99. I learned absolutely nothing. So in my own demented way of reasoning, I thought that if I bought a more expensive book telling me how to sell books online, that would have to be better. I remember that book being $14.99. Didn't learn anything from that one either. I would have no issues whatsoever in using both these books to start a fire at a campsite. That is, if I ever went camping, which I won't. I wouldn't even be concerned that fellow campers would think I was starting a movement to keep knowledge away from other people by burning the books, following the pre-World War II example from Europe. All they would have to do is look inside the covers for a few minutes, and they would readily agree with me and toss them in the fire. I finally figured out, after spending almost $27 on these 2 publications, that the theme of the book shouldn't have been how to instruct me to market and sell books online. It should have been how to get me to buy their book, which, like an idiot, I did. I would gladly initiate the return of these 2 books to get my $27 back, but I had bent some of the pages and underlined a few paragraphs. The result today? My trilogy of books is just out there waiting to be bought. Maybe the sales audience will slowly build. Maybe Oprah Winfrey's book club will pick it up. Who knows? Stranger things have happened, right? So what can we learn from this? As long as we continue to buy stuff, there will always be scammers and false advertisers trying to take our money. It's inevitable that we're all going to fall for something sooner or later. The only question is, how much will we lose? As the phrase goes, caveat emptor, buyer beware. Well, that's it for this week's installment of Bean Steamers on false advertising. I hope you learned something. There's always somebody out there trying to take your money. Hold on to it as long as you can. You worked too hard for it. And if you like this YouTube channel, please hit the subscribe button and the little bell for notifications. You'll be the first one on your block to have the latest installment of Bean Steamers. That's all for now. Thanks so much for watching.